Hi, my name's Alex, and I'd like to introduce our team's project, Ambrosial, by the original ginger beer. Ken, the company's founder, has a passion for ginger beer and competed in Cal Poly's AngelCon competition for 2 consecutive years. In his first year, he pitched a home-brewed ginger beer that he personally fermented and packaged. However, after learning how crowded the functional and wellness beverage market had become, Ken identified a new opportunity and pivoted his business. He developed Ambrosial, a highly concentrated CO2-infused ginger syrup that can be mixed with soda water to create ginger beer on demand, eliminating the need for traditional bottled ginger beer in cocktails such as Moscow Mules and Dark and Stormies. This product addresses a common challenge in the bar industry, the inefficiency of traditional ginger beer in cocktails. A typical Moscow Mule contains vodka, lime juice, and 4 to 6 ounces of ginger beer. Yet most ginger beer is sold in 7-ounce bottles or cans. This creates two major challenges for bars. First, cases of bottled ginger beer are bulky, heavy, and expensive to ship and store. Second, each cocktail uses only about 3/4 of a bottle, leaving the remainder to go flat, be discarded, or create clutter and spills behind the bar during busy service. Ambrosial eliminates these issues with a highly concentrated ginger syrup that can be directly dispensed into a glass, combined with vodka and lime juice, and topped with soda water. The result is the same great tasting cocktail with less waste, lower storage requirements, and a more efficient workflow for bartenders. The three following qualities make Ambrosia unique. First, stability. The concentrate is shelf stable at room temperature and maintains a consistent emulsion without separating. Second, concentration. Ambrosial is roughly 6 to 11 times more concentrated than many craft ginger syrups. Third, flavor and aroma. Ambrosial delivers the full character of real ginger, creating a richer and more authentic experience than many concentrates or bottled ginger beer currently available. With that understanding of the product, I'll now discuss the work our team completed for Ken and the original ginger beer. Our project began with extensive discussions with Ken to better understand his vision for the company and determine the business model he wanted to pursue. Through research and brainstorming, we concluded that focusing on local sales would be a strong strategy for building credibility and validating the product in the market. From there, we conducted target market research to identify the bars and restaurants in the San Luis Obispo area that would be the best fit for Ambrosial's ginger syrup. We then developed a business model that addressed key operational questions, including packaging and product format. We evaluated options such as pump dispensers and bag-and-box systems that could integrate directly with a bar soda gun, automatically mixing the concentrate with soda water. Next, we built financial projections based on this go-to-market strategy to assess its viability and growth potential. Finally, Ken wanted to explore alternative business opportunities for the product, including licensing the formula to manufacturers rather than producing it himself or through a co-packer. To evaluate this option, we developed a licensing business model and analyzed the potential economics of a licensing strategy. With that overview, Kai will begin by discussing our target market research and the opportunities we identified in the local bar and restaurant industry.
All right. Thank you, Alex, for the introduction. Hello, my name is Kai, and I'd like to begin with the first task at hand of supporting Ken's ginger ambrosial business. With Ken having established a prime product, there are three main issues he faces in selling his product. First is brand recognition. Within the subsegment of ginger concentrates and syrup, there is already a current existing competition base. But in light of Ken's product, these can be seen as subpar in flavor, aromatics, and quality. Without being able to attribute the special cold-pressed CO2 extraction of ginger to his own brand, Ken's Ambrosial suffers of being at risk of being compared to these lower quality products. As Ken has created a unique process for creating ginger concentrates, it must be established with its own recognition. Second, in order for the brand to not only begin an effective initial sales campaign, but continue on to eventually pivot and expand its business, the brand must establish some sort of credibility. A successful history of sales of this product will not only serve as this credibility, but also be important in testing to see if the product will become successful in the first place. Lastly, an issue that remains is the current absence of a customer feedback loop. Without any information or feedback on the product, the brand is unable to grow its product to better suit its target audience, allow for changes, or streamline the existing business process. One business is only able to learn so much about optimizing without any field experience. So, in order to address these perspectives, our team pitched and fledged out an idea to begin with a local market B2B selling approach while considering Ken's current capabilities in manufacturing output, cost, target audience, and current market advantages. San Luis Obispo County will serve as the base to start out with its support of local small businesses, consumer behavior of supporting organic and health-aware products, while acting as a staging point to expand into other markets. Additionally, we consider Ken's strength of local market knowledge, sales experience, and his wishes to be on hand in the initial business sequences. We began by generating a model of selling in the San Luis Obispo County, which is able to be adopted to a different county in acquiring new sales accounts. Within this model, there is a maturity point or dollar figures that is to be reached where the brand has generated enough revenue to pivot to a different business strategy, such as varying product details, such as utilizing a box and bag approach, or following through with licensing or distribution deals. Within building out the slow local county B2B strategy, we first dug in local municipality files of business establishments with alcohol licenses. But of course, we can't pitch the sales of Premier Ginger Ambrosial to just any alcohol related establishment. We identified the type of licenses that a prospective sales account would first have and then pulled this data out. Continuing our refinement, we established a system in identifying an establishment in whether they'd be interested in the product in the first place, the nature of purchase volumes of the product, and then a mock-up of a supply deal. All accumulating, this would last to a final delivery of a prospective sales list backed by business background information, potential sales volumes, and an overall rating score of the business as a recurring sales account for the Ginger Ambrosial brand. These establishments all deliver as utilizing the Ambrosial product within their back bar production, primarily utilizing the products within cocktail mixers, ginger beer bases, and premium bar program creations. We established a list of 71 total local prospects, whom are not only highly potential accounts, but also serve nurturing the Ambrosial brand's recognition, credibility, and serve as a stepping stone to further scale the business. Within the delivery aspect of the product, we identified either a package of two 24-ounce bottles or a six pack of 24-ounce bottles as the best, depending on the establishment. And within our establishment models, we established that just within SLO County borders, there's upwards of $25,000 in just pure revenue within the first year. After the second or third year, we believe that the next pivoting point for Ken is approachable, where he's able to leverage his sales record and brand reception to pivot either to a new region or to a bigger distribution plan in supplying mid-sized beverage manufacturers that produce sparkling beverages or private label brands, as well as attacking the wellness segment with ginger shots or functional wellness products that concentrate health beverages.
Hi, my name is Erin, and now I'm going to be speaking about our process of finding some packaging solutions for Ken. For his business, we felt it is very important to find the most cost-effective packaging options for small-scale local distribution that could later grow into the larger commercial accounts. And with the original business model of local distribution, Ken was very adamant about working directly with the businesses in SLO and making sure that he was doing the distributing himself. With that being said, we wanted to ensure he would have packaging options that would allow him to buy smaller quantities without having that larger upfront investment. And we ultimately focused on pump bottles with dispensers that could be used for his ginger concentrate. And our online sources were compared based off unit costs, minimum quantity, minimum order quantities, and shipping expenses. In addition to his 8-ounce bottle he had already been using, we found 24-ounce bottle packaging options that aligned more with what we had been seeing in the market for bar syrups and cafe syrups. The 24-ounce bottles were found from an online wholesale distributor, containerandpackaging.com, and the prices and costs are included in the pro forma. In addition to these options, we also discussed some options for Ken to use further down the road, such as bag and box, where the concentrate would be mixed with soda water for the bars, and this can easily be sold in bulk. We also discussed possibly utilizing local packaging solutions such as Ernest Packaging and SLO.
Hello, my name is Andrew, and I'll be going over the pro forma that we created for Ambrosial. And I'll be first talking about the pricing, then I'll go over the assumptions, then I'll talk about the pro forma. So we do have three different pathways. You can see we have three different pro formas. The first one being the individual 8-ounce ginger concentrate bottle. So this is the original idea to sell locally to bars and slow. The bottle contains around 45 pumps, which would be one pump per Moscow mule. So that can make around 45 Moscow mules. We would charge the bar around $20 per bottle, and this would only cost them 44 cents per Moscow mule that they make. They currently, most bars use bottled ginger beer, which brands like Fever Tree, would be around $2 per drink. That would cost them. So they'd be saving around $1.56 per drink. If they scale that yearly, they could save around $8,000. So now we can look at how much it costs to make one bottle for us. So it's a little under $7, including ingredients, packaging, bottle pumps, shipping if needed, and also a small allowance, 2% for any problems like bad bottles, returns, or credits. Our profit would be around $13 per bottle and about a 65% profit percentage. Next, I'll be talking about the individual 24-ounce ginger concentrate bottles. So I scaled this using the numbers of the from the 8-ounce concentrate bottle. So it would be around 135 pumps per bottle, which we can make around 135 Moscow mules. We would charge around $60 for per bottle. It would cost the same amount, 44 cents for the bar per drink. They would still be saving the same $1.56 per drink. It costs us around $18.37, and we would make $41.63 per bottle, giving us actually a higher profit margin, profit percentage of 69%. Next, I'll be talking about the six pack of 24-ounce ginger concentrate bottles. I did originally, it would be $360 for six bottles using the same price as the individual ginger concentrate bottles. But I did add a 15% discount to make it look more attractive. So we would only charge the bar around $306, which is around $51 per bottle. And it only costs us around $79 to make a case of 24-ounce ginger concentrate, and we would make around $226 per case with a gross margin of 74%, which is the highest out of the three. Now I'll be going over the assumptions. So every pathway runs on the same handful of drivers. The biggest is how many accounts we have. An account is just a buyer, so a bar, restaurant, store, or even a hotel. We estimate a growth from 50 accounts in year one to 140, then to 260 to 390, and then in year five, 500. The second thing to look at is the bottles per account per month. So for 8-ounce bottles, we estimate around 9.6 bottles per month, which is around 100 Moscow mules a week for a bar. And then for 24-ounce bottles, it'd be around 3.2 bottles per month. And then for a six pack or case, it would be a little under one case per month. Next thing to look at is the retention rate. So we assume we keep about 90% of our accounts each year because once a bar builds the product into its workflow, it usually stays. So now looking at the operating expenses, first the salaries and wages. So they're going to try to keep the team lean. The founder is going to take no salary in the setup in year zero, and then start at 45,000 year one and grow it to 135,000 by year five, with part-time help instead of using full-time hires early on. And to fund this setup year, we will raise $250,000 through funding. The founder does have a relationship with JP Morgan and is in the process of requesting this investment. So lastly, talking about the pro forma. So we built a 5-year model for each format, each running the same account wrap. So these three scenarios, three ways that the business could look depending on which format our accounts settle on. Starting with the 8-ounce pro forma, with a conservative base case, revenue grows from 115,000 in year one all the way to 1.1 million in year five. This actually is the same for the 24-ounce individual bottle from 115,000 to 1.1 million by year 5, but there is a larger gross margin here of 69% compared to the gross margin of the 8-ounce, which is 65%. And then lastly, we can see for the 6-pack, we start at 136,000 total revenue to almost 1.4 million by year 5, with the highest gross margin, 74%. So two things hold true across the three. First is there's only a lost year is year 0, this which is the setup year, and from year 1 forward, every pathway is profitable, and the profit climbs sharply. Second, our cash never runs out; it stays positive every year. On one $250,000 raise with no secondary round needed. And these numbers are conservative on purpose. The costs are real supplier quotes, and the growth is tied to actual accounts. The 71 SLO County bars and restaurants Kai walked you through earlier. So this is the local model. We make it and sell ourselves across the three pathways. But there's also a second way to run the business that the founder has considered, which is licensing the formula instead of actually producing it. And Alex will take you through that.
In addition to the local sales strategy, Ken wanted to explore an alternative growth path, licensing the formulation rather than the manufacturing and selling the product himself. The idea behind this model is that instead of producing and distributing Ambrosial, the company would license its proprietary ginger formulation and extraction process to existing beverage manufacturers. This creates a much more capital-light business model because it avoids many of the costs associated with manufacturing, warehousing, distribution, and inventory management. One challenge we encountered during our research is that licensing agreements are highly customized and often private, making it difficult to find exact industry benchmarks. Terms vary significantly depending on the uniqueness of the intellectual property, the size of the manufacturer, and whether any exclusivity rights are included. However, most licensing agreements generally contain two key financial components. The first is an upfront licensing fee, which provides the licensee with access to the formulation and intellectual property. The second is an ongoing royalty payment, which is typically tied to production volume or sales and creates recurring revenue for the licensor. To evaluate the potential economics, we built an illustrative example using a mid-sized beverage manufacturer, producing approximately 1 million units annually. Under this scenario, a manufacturer would pay an upfront licensing fee of $25,000 along with a royalty of 2 cents per unit sold. At 1 million units, that royalty would generate approximately $20,000 in annual recurring revenue, resulting in roughly $45,000 of first-year revenue from a single licensing partner. We then examined how this model could scale. With 3 licensing partners, annual revenue could reach approximately $135,000. With 5 partners, revenue could reach $250,000 annually. And with 8 partners, it could approach $500,000 per year. As the company acquires larger and more established manufacturing partners, revenue per agreement would likely increase due to higher production volumes and broader market reach, hence why these numbers are not linear. While these figures are illustrative rather than predictive, they demonstrate the primary advantage of the licensing model: the ability to generate recurring revenue without the significant capital requirements and the operational complexity of becoming a beverage manufacturer. Ultimately, our conclusion was that licensing represents a viable long-term opportunity for Ambrosial, particularly if the formulation can be validated and protected as unique intellectual property. However, additional market testing, legal development, and partnership discussions would be necessary before pursuing this strategy commercially.
Although as the quarter progressed, Ken became more interested in pursuing the licensing model. He was still interested in including that first model we talked about of local distribution in order to establish market demand and credibility. To prepare for his meeting he was planning with the JP Morgan executive director, he asked if we could help write his business proposal and editing his financial projection analysis. For the business proposal, we were tasked with writing 3 main sections. The first being a brief description of the 3 different pathways, which were the original model of selling the concentrate itself, the licensing model, and a hybrid between the two, where you would start with local distribution and then go on to finding licensing partnerships. In addition to a brief description, we also included a trade-off analysis for each. The second segment was on licensing economics, and this largely summarized what Alex had just described in the previous section. The third part was a competitive consolidation comparable, where an overview of 4 recent licensing, acquisition, and partnerships done by beverage companies was included. And although Ambrosial is a much smaller scale, we felt including these was important for showing the popularity of flavored beverages in the market right now and creating some inspiration for business modeling. Besides editing and writing part of the business proposal, we were also tasked with editing a pro forma analysis that Ken provided us for this new licensing and hybrid model. Because the model was largely based off assumptions, it was our job to find some more realistic numbers through research and comparing his pro forma analysis to the one we had done before for his old model.
All right. As we wrap up our work and deliverables, I'd like to briefly touch upon the main challenges we identified while working on Ken's Ambrosial business. The first major challenge is choosing the right business model, whether that's in-house production, co-packaging, licensing, distribution deals, or who even the products is sold to. All of these determine the path that this business will take. The second major challenge is brand protection and protecting the formula. A patent may not be realistic for the beverage or concentrate formula, so the more practical approach may be treating it as a trade secret. That means confidentiality agreements and limiting who has access to the full recipes. Another major challenge is unit economics and sourcing. Sourcing is especially important as this product depends on ingredient quality. The business needs reliable suppliers and a production process that keeps product consistency while being cost effective. Another challenge is buyers' education. In order for this product to shine, customers need to understand what it is, how to use it, and see its value with the CO2 cold pressed ginger extraction method. This needs to be presented clearly to the buyer and catered depending on who they are, whether it is a business or a consumer. Finally, there's a challenge of competition. There are already established ginger beers, mixers, syrups, and concentrate brands in the market. Even if some of these brands are lower grade, they already have established brand recognition, production systems, and relationships with retailers and restaurants. Within all of these challenges, our team's goal was to help Ken take his strong product ideas and think through how it could realistically become a business. Through our work, we outlined several possible business models, built out the path that seemed most realistic and most aligned with Ken's goals. As a group, we looked at the business from multiple angles and we identified markets, and the local selling model. We explored packaging, branding, and built out the financial side, discussing licensing opportunities and adjusting the plan as the business direction became clearer. Finally, we also helped prepare Ken for the next stage of business development by creating financial models and business administration tools to support serious conversations with lenders and investors. By organizing these financials, business models, and market strategy, our team helped give Ken more of a professional foundation to present the opportunity clearly, answer investor questions, and communicate the business potential. Ultimately, we believe our work gives Ken a starting roadmap and a professional groundwork to begin the initial phase of delivering this product. Thank you for listening.